Hey guys, how we all doing? Been a few weeks, thought I'd do a little stream, just an hour or so I expect. Just thought see how you guys are all getting on. Had a bit of a drop in the old crypto again. Nothing too much, nothing too bad as far as I can see. More China cracking down on illegal activity, which is good. Creates a bit of short-term sort of rough news articles and downwards pressure, but I would say long-term pretty good. And more tweets from Elon Musk. But yeah, pretty good. Still nothing happened on the transfer to IG from Hargreaves and iWeb. Still just says it's with Hargreaves and iWeb. They're waiting on transfers, so if any of you guys sort of wondering about transfers from broker to broker, obviously cash isn't too bad, but yeah, if you want to keep your holdings intact when you transfer, then this can take months, it seems. So I initiated the two transfers on 28th of April, and yeah, still waiting 6 weeks later. So yeah, drop comments and questions in the chat. We'll see how everyone is. Hello, Westy. Yeah, part of the reason, obviously, for wanting to go with IG was they do some ETFs, and I think the odd stock that Trading 212 don't do. And I wanted two brokers anyway, just sort of for the long term. If we're gonna sort of hopefully sometime down the road have the sort of £500,000 portfolio, don't really want all of that in Trading 212, so would rather have two brokers. And IG just sort of seemed to be, as I say, sort of one of the better of the sort of professional platforms, the old guard. Reasonable fees, sort of on the US side. If you make 3 trades a month, then it's 0 fees. UK side, it's £3 if you make 3 trades a month. Not 100% sure whether I will, so I may end up paying the higher charges, but not the end of the world. And the FX fee, as I say, which a lot of brokers do seem to be sort of missing out. They just say foreign exchange fees apply. Theirs is 0.5%, and yeah, some of the other sort of older guys, Hargreaves Lansdowne is 1%. iWeb was 1.5%. Trading 212 obviously is 0.15%, so it's a lot cheaper. Free trade is 0.45, so IG are pretty much on par with them. And a custody fee, which is your sort of platform fee. Is if you make 3 trades in a quarter, which really isn't a lot, then it's free. So basically take that as no platform fee. I would just make sure that I do 3 trades in a quarter, but I can't see me doing any less than that. So yeah, hopefully this goes through soon, but doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. How are we all doing, guys? Oh, Liam? Yes, 6 weeks. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago, Hargreaves Lansdowne acknowledged the transfer, and they've said it can take 2 to 8 weeks if you're doing an in situ with holdings intact transfer. So I assume they mean 2 to 8 weeks from the 21st of May. So yeah, we could be looking at August, which is nice, from April. I'm Sadiq. Hope you have a good day so far. Yeah, not too bad. Liam, you're currently with Interactive Investor. Seems to be working for now. No derivatives. Yeah, I'd be staying away from derivatives personally. Interactive Investor seem a reasonable platform. I did look at them, but yeah, sort of found IG slightly cheaper on fees by the looks of it, and yeah, just seemed to sort of like the look of them a little bit better. But nothing wrong with Interactive Investor. Westy, what do you see Bitcoin falling to? That's anybody's guess at the moment. Is Ether a better buy than Bitcoin right now with Bitcoin news? Thoughts on the crypto? Well, yeah, so there's a few bits there. Bitcoin falling to, not 100% sure. I mean, I can't really see it going. I've seen a lot of people sort of talking about $20,000. So, yeah, this is in pounds, but yeah, so that'd be sort of $14,000 pounds. Sorry. Yeah, I can't really see it, to be honest. Could happen, obviously, but that would be sort of, what would it be, 70% down. I mean, that is basically a sort of full crash, bear market territory. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. I do find these sort of drops and crashes, even in the bull market, always seem to end with people calling for lower prices, and then they're wrong and it just goes up, and sort of people that would have bought in miss out, basically. So, yeah, I'm not sure I see it falling too much more, maybe a few £1,000. But yeah, I think just sort of keep tight. 6 months later, it should be looking pretty good. Maybe a year later, should be looking very good. Ether, I would still say if Bitcoin's going to fall, then Ether and all of the rest pretty much are going to fall more. Longer term, there might be a better bet. As you say, I think Bitcoin will go up, and Ether will probably go up more. But in terms of sort of short term, I wouldn't think move into Ether for safety or anything just because the negative headlines are about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will sort of do its thing and the others sort of generally follow in an amplified manner. They'll do more than whatever Bitcoin does, even though the news isn't really about them. It's just what seems to happen in the crypto market. Thoughts on the crypto credit cards? I haven't really seen them all that much. I sort of think it causes a bit of a tax issue, to be honest. If you're doing sort of very small transactions, buying something for £15 with your credit cards, it is still a taxable event, and presumably at some point you're going to have to work out how much you've gained on the £15. I mean, I'm going to have to be getting an accountant as it is. So, yeah, the thought of having to sort of give them, because they're not going to, they're going to ask for all of your transactions, and trying to find out how much you made on £15 worth is sort of seems to be more hassle than it's worth, to be honest. So, yeah, I kind of think sell a chunk into pounds or into whatever your local currency is, and then spend a little from there. Yeah, so I wouldn't be looking for a credit card, to be honest. Oh, Josh, all good, all good. A little bit rocked with the crypto downturn. Stock's not doing too bad, to be honest. Seem to be sort of holding up a little better than some. Down sort of, what are we down? 2,000 since the weekend. Seems pretty good, to be honest. A lot of things sort of holding up reasonably well. REIT's still doing pretty well. A lot of this drop has just been things like Argo blockchain, the Bitcoin ETP, and a little bit off gold, to be honest. So, yeah, can't really count that as down all that much. It's just down because I'm in Bitcoin. Sadiq. Despite many bullish news this week, price still keeps going down. I think the bottom is 30. Well, we got to sort of just touching the high 29s before, so could sort of double bottom maybe to 30. I think the bad news is sort of outweighing the good news at the moment. There's some sort of bullish news stories, but even little silly things like, Donald Trump says it's a scam. We all knew his thoughts. He tweeted before that he said it was worthless, and that's not exactly news, so don't see why him calling it a scam suddenly is news. But yeah, that sort of thing just reaches so many people, hundreds of millions of followers on Twitter with retweets and the media news, media coverage that it gets. Yeah, so I think the bad news is outweighing it. Liam, really appreciate the effort in your channel. Great inspiration and provides great insight as a new ISA investor. Well, thank you very much. I know I don't put sort of maybe the most effort into the videos, but I think it's more about sort of interaction and just to sort of see the facts, what I'm buying, what I'm selling, and have a discussion about it. So yeah, I hope it helps. Is there a platform that can do trading on ISA stocks and shares? I mean, trading 2-on-2 isn't the worst for that, to be honest. It's not a huge cost depending on what you're buying and selling. Obviously, if you're buying UK stocks, you're going to pay stamp duty on a lot of them, so it's not really all that good. US stocks, you pay the FX fee but no stamp duty. So if you're buying and selling, you're going to pay 0.3% combined. But yeah, it's not too bad if you want to do it within an ISA. Obviously, outside of that, you can be looking at CFDs and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want to sort of keep it all tax-free, I would say sort of wait until trading 2-on-2 open up again. I think if you do that sort of thing with free trade, the sort of US shares, the FX fee is going to start racking up. You could sort of lose more than you're making, really. Josh, you feel for me with the crypto. It's all right. I've been through far worse than this. You only have ARB, and depressing every time you look at it. Yeah, I think it looks rough at the moment, but you got to look longer term than this. Obviously, I've sat through the whole sort of 2018, 2019, even 2020 sort of early on bear market. But yes, it's been worse. I was there in sort of 2014 to 2016, all the sort of, there was hundreds of articles sort of being written that it was dead, it was the end. And yeah, so I think, 3 or 4 months of rough times is sort of small fry compared to that. Liam, if you can follow up on a response from you in a vid, what was the initial source of funds? Did I run a business or work in corporate? No, it's, as I say, all the sort of purchases in crypto and that sort of thing have just come from salary, sort of wanting to take a bit of a speculative bet. And then sort of the shares, as I say, I sort of saved up quite a lot in cash in an offset mortgage account. Sort of, so you're effectively getting 2.5% a year on your money. And I sort of thought could do better than that, so took out the whole lot, and all that money was just putting it aside from salary. So yeah, I'm quite a frugal person. I was able to sort of put quite a bit of my salary away over the years, and then yeah, all of the rest has got to come from just adding more and more salary into it and selling some of that crypto. So no, I've never run a business. That's not really for me. And yeah, not really a corporate job. I'm not even on the I'm on the basic rate tax, so that should give you an idea of earnings. How do you get into an ETF of Bitcoin as a retail investor? That's quite difficult at the moment. Trading 212 had the BTCE ETF, but they've closed that to new investors because the Financial Conduct Authority see that as derivatives and gambling, basically. So they've shut those down. So you struggle to get a Bitcoin ETF, to be honest. There's still a lot waiting to get approved. But yeah, the sort of speculation is that they're going to get rejected. The decisions have been postponed, I think, till sort of later this month, but I'm not sure I can see it going through. There's been people at the SEC talking about manipulation and volatility again, so kind of thinking that's a hint that they're going to get rejected. So no ETFs on the horizon, I don't think. We're getting a little bit excited, but can't see it. Hello, Craig. Not seen you before, I don't think. What do we think of... We've got a few here. So Rolls-Royce, it's on the long-term watch list, but not really buying it at the moment. Seems a little bit too much debt. Seem to be sort of obviously issued a lot of shares, and market cap is not all that far off what they were pre-COVID, I don't think. And they were sort of not doing particularly well profit-wise and even revenue growth or anything even before COVID. So, yeah, not all that keen at the moment. Shell, pretty happy about. Obviously, they've been knocked back, told they've got to cut their carbon emissions quite soon. So, I think they'll have to be getting more into renewables quicker than expected. But, yeah, pretty happy with them. If I had some sort of more cash coming in from crypto and that sort of thing, I'd probably be up in the Shell position. WTB, I'm not sure about. Is that Whitbread? I take it you mean on the London Stock Exchange? Not really one for me, to be honest. Yeah, these are the Premier Inn people, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's not really one for me. And GSK I did have on my sort of long-term pie, but just seems to be sort of not really one of the better pharma companies. Not a lot of growth. They're sort of cutting their dividend, spinning off their consumer company, and sort of a lot of uncertainty about that. So yeah, not really a huge fan. Undervalued stocks that stand out, I would sort of still say a lot of the ones on my sort of watch list, to be honest. I know I'm not in the sort of Pepsis and colas and that sort of thing, but yeah, things like Tyson, Kroger still seem pretty good. Financials, not too bad. FedEx still seems fine. Some of the sort of UK REITs, not too bad. Some of the miners, especially, I know they've had a good run up, but yeah, they seem okay. And the sort of tech side, I still like Broadcom, still like eBay, really like Prosus and Baidu. Yeah, and quite like Samsung and Sony really still. So yeah, it's quite a few to sort of still think about, I would say. Have a look into yourself. Yeah, retail investor in the... I can't see a UK Bitcoin ETF coming anytime soon, to be honest. You know, sort of legal and general and that sort of thing. I don't think they're going to get into it. It could be 2 or 3 years at least before they start looking at it. It'd be a US one if anything, but yeah, can see them getting rejected. Sadiq, I think there'll be some sort of regulation being imposed on Bitcoin in the long run. I think there is regulation coming in now, really. They're trying to do more and more. You sort of getting the what was it? The reporting. Was it any transaction over $10,000 or something? They have to report it to the IRS now in America. So yeah, you're getting more and more of that sort of thing, which is a good thing. It means it's legitimizes Bitcoin rather than wanting to ban it. If they wanted to ban it, then they wouldn't be doing that sort of thing. They would just be, taking steps towards banning it. There's a lot of things they could do. They could be banning the exchanges and that sort of thing, like China is talking about. Never been sort of even a hint of that so far. So yeah, I would see the regulation being good. Josh, you hear the news on Biogen? Yeah, I saw it's an Alzheimer's drug. It's a little bit sort of speculative for me, really. Don't really sort of go for these, I'm sure they're not a one drug company, obviously, but yeah, you're sort of gambling on whether these big drugs get approved. I'm not all that keen on the healthcare sector as it is, to be honest. I know I've got a couple now, but yeah, they're more of a sort of defensive play, while I'm a bit wary of the market. So yeah, not all that keen on the sector. If we do get a reasonable crash, I think I'll probably get fairly well out of the healthcare sector and maybe just leave it as Johnson & Johnson and the Arc Medical pie, sort of as I've shown. Do a video to help new investors get into investing in stocks and shares. I've seen a lot of people do that sort of video. I think it's sort of fairly well covered. I mean, people will show you the sort of UK brokers and that sort of thing, and they'll sort of give you an indication of how to buy ETFs if you're getting started. Maybe look at individual stocks. Not really sure I would sort of add that much value to those videos, to be honest. Might have a think about it, but yeah, I kind of think sort of there's plenty of info out there, to be honest. Hello, Thomas. Do you avoid paying tax if you take out a loan against your crypto as collateral? I think it's a good idea, and would you use this service? I've seen the idea, the sort of BlockFi type, stake your Bitcoin on there and take out a loan against it. Obviously, you're going to be paying fees on that loan, whether it's worth sort of doing that you're only delaying the tax. Obviously, you have to pay it eventually, depending on how much you've got, I guess. You could maybe use up your capital gains tax allowance over 2 or 3 years and sort of pay less tax that way. Obviously, if you're still paying fees on the loan, you're taking risk on having it on somewhere like BlockFi. Not really. I've seen it, people talking about it, but it's not really something I'd be that keen to go for, to be honest. I would be looking to just stake it on there and have the income from it. Obviously, then you're not paying tax, but you'd pay tax on the income. Or maybe even just, I'm thinking of probably selling some Bitcoin and, in the end, selling some and sort of keeping it as USDC or T, and just keeping it on somewhere like BlockFi, and you sort of get 6-7% return, which is really what I'm looking for from the stocks. So just give me a little bit of more diversification. So yeah, I'll probably be going down the sort of staking route rather than the loan route. Josh, any more thoughts on the Wood ETF? I don't think it's one for me. I think I would rather sort of pick the companies from that sort of thing. It's quite an expensive ETF for what it is. Yeah, sort of had a look at the individual companies and seems quite sort of diversified. Not sure it'll it'll get the return that I was looking for, really. And yeah, if we have sort of downturn, then obviously the house builders will struggle, and sort of commercial building might struggle. So yeah, I could see that one sort of maybe struggling as well. So maybe not that much defensive side, really. Seems like it would sort of do well in the good times, and I think there's sort of plenty for that, to be honest. Maybe as an inflation hedge, I suppose. Yeah, it's just not something that really jumped out at me. Kind of happy with my sort of ETF allocation at the moment. Liam, you work on the audit of Impact Healthcare. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I've sort of got them. Would be looking to build that up at some point. It's a bit difficult in the ISA. Kind of need sort of gold and silver to run up, and I would sort of diversify into that, or just hopefully add to them over the years. So it'll take a bit of time to build that sort of thing up. But yeah, interesting. Be interesting to hear your thoughts on them. I don't know how much you're allowed to say publicly. But yeah, I do like the look of them. It's a slow grower, but with a sort of 6% yield. I'm fairly happy with that. If I can get a couple of percent growth, it's I would say a defensive stock, sort of index-linked leases. So yeah, pretty happy with it. Do you think there's any truth in sell in May and go away, come back on St. Ledger's Day? I haven't actually heard the last part. I don't know. I think I'm always wary of these sort of sayings. I mean, often, you hear a saying, and if you actually look back at the data, there isn't really that much in it. I know people have sort of looked at the average return per month, over the last sort of 100 years, and it'll start saying, May is a worse month, or September is a worse month. I mean, there might be something in it, but I would sort of see it as more coincidence than anything. Sadiq, do you still believe in BTC target of 100k by end of year? I mean, I guess we've been rattled at the moment. I still think we could be getting sort of pretty close to there, if not 100k. I mean, it could be a lot of people are comparing it to the sort of 2013 bull run, that we might have a bit of stagnation for a little while, and then sort of another leg up maybe towards the end of the year. Could be, first quarter next year as a sort of top, if it's a bit of a lengthening sort of cycle. I'm not sure really. I'm quite happy sort of if it's either the next 6 months towards the end of the year, or even if it's early into next year. If it doesn't, hoping it doesn't sort of stagnate around here until the end of the year. If we're getting back up to sort of, 60, 70k maybe towards the end of the year, and then, a final sort of big run first or second quarter next year, then I'd be fairly happy with that. Can sort of continue, selling a little bit more. If the altcoins are doing well as well, then can sell a little bit more of them, and just sort of average out. So maybe 100k still by the end of the year, but it would be a sort of fairly big blow off, I would think, to get there in less than 6 months, or round about 6 months, I guess. So we'll see. Liam, great management team and lean capital structure for Impact. Can't really say much else. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's they're quite a small company, so that's fair enough. But good to hear. I did like the look of them. It's a little bit difficult to get a huge amount of data on these sort of companies, but good to hear. Josh, a guy in work was talking about the saying, St. Ledger's a horse race that takes place mid-September. I mean, that seems like a hell of a long time to go away, to be honest. So you got May, June, July, August and September that you're going to be out of the market, or you know, maybe just lowering your leverage and that sort of thing. I can't really see it, to be honest. I think it's just sort of old sayings, old wives' tales. But yeah, we'll see. Interesting to sort of see where some of the bigger coins are going at the moment. And we've had some up and downs. Bitcoin down the most actually on the last 7 days, except Cardano and Ripple. But yeah, you sort of Ethereum's and that sort of thing maybe holding up a little bit better. I think some of them have become a little bit sort of unhinged from each other. They don't move, you know, day and date exactly the same anymore, but the broader trend sort of still seems to be roughly the same. You very rarely see just Bitcoin going down and everything else going up, so yeah, it does still seem to be sort of fairly well correlated to Bitcoin. Not sure about this internet computer one. It seems sort of a bit crazy to go straight in at the top 10. So we'll see it's dropped down a hell of a lot since it launched, but yeah, we get very wary of these sort of huge coins with, you know, X, Y, and Z famous person backing it, and yeah, they sort of start very high. Just seems like maybe an initial pump, sort of like an IPO on in stocks, to be honest. You get the initial pump and often sort of seems to trickle down for the next month or two. But yeah, a lot of them not holding up too bad, really. Yeah, the more speculative altcoins are down sort of 50, 60%, 70% from the top, but yeah, it's fairly expected. As you say, if it's sort of similar to 2013, we had a fair drop back then. Yeah, if I just looking at the sort of Bitcoin stock to flow model, so this was your 2013, so ran all the way up to sort of 200s in April time in 2013, and yeah, came all the way back to sort of even $70. So yeah, that's a hell of a move, and sort of stagnated for a little bit, sort of slow rise, and then obviously you had the crazy run at the end of the year. So could be doing the similar sort of thing to here. Might take a little bit longer. It might be a year instead of 6 months. So that was where the sort of Q1, Q2 next year predictions are coming from, I think. There was always talk that this run as well, the sort of run up to 1,000, was caused by a bot, rather. I remember it was called Wally. People were sort of saying it was sort of buying from itself, you know, sort of recurring buys that wasn't really real people, and that was what caused such a dramatic rise up in a short space of time. Obviously, there was a lot less volume and a lot less liquidity back then, so it was easy to sort of pump it up that much. I mean, that's nearly 300% sort of in 2 or 3 weeks, so I don't think you get that quite this time, quite as fast. But interesting. It's folklore, Josh. Yeah, it's very nice. Still can't believe there's such a big waiting list for 212. Been on the wait list for a week now, and you've already had enough. Cool, yeah, a week. I mean, I think some people have been on the wait list for a few months now. Don't think it was helped by the sort of GameStop and AMC shenanigans, all the rest of that. Sort of nearly broke the stock market, it seemed to be at the time. And they've had, I think, sort of, they were saying 1 million users. They've got 2 billion in assets now. I think it just all sort of came a little bit too fast, too soon. Obviously, they were basically the cheapest on the market, cheaper than free trade, cheaper than everyone. So they were just getting people piling in, and then all that sort of stuff going wrong. And so I can see why they've sort of had to shut their doors. Maybe it was some people talking about, it might have been the Financial Conduct Authority and people like that sort of telling them to shut their doors for a little while until they sorted their stuff out. So, if you had to put all your money into one crypto, what would it be and why? I still say Bitcoin, to be honest. I know a lot of people are sort of saying Ethereum's going to outperform, but it's got, major competitors in sort of Cardano and Polkadot, and even sort of Binance Coin is doing quite a lot in that area. I don't really see Bitcoin as having sort of a main competitor in the the digital gold type space. So I would still say Bitcoin, but I wouldn't sort of put everything into one crypto. I don't think it's really advisable. I would. I mean, obviously, I'm spread out across sort of 10, 12, and the little small caps. So that's me, but I like to keep sort of diversified. Opinions on Computer Center and ADM. I did look at Computer Center when a lot of the guys were talking about it on Discord. Didn't really sort of jump out at me, to be honest. The sort of retail, sort of seemed good, reasonably good financials, but nothing spectacular. Just sort of, okay. Not really. I think I put it on the watch list at time, and sort of since taking it off, just didn't seem to be sort of doing anything for me. There was a lot of other stocks that I would sort of rather invest in. And Archer Daniels is sort of one of my bigger positions. So, still fairly happy with them. I still think they'll do well in a sort of inflationary environment. And they're still sort of not really that big. I mean, it's sort of 38 billion now that it's gone up. So I'm doing quite well on that at the moment. But I still think it's a reasonable buy. Can't remember what the analysts have been doing recently. Sort of increase in estimates. Maybe not sort of the best value at the moment, but I think they should do well going forward. Might be a little bit more of a slow grower if you're buying in today, but I think defensive. Westy, same question for non-crypto stocks. You mean putting all your money into one stock? I don't think I'd really answer that, to be honest. I think that's too risky. Again, sort of, I like my diversity. Obviously, you've got sort of my large portfolio. I'm not keen on sort of reducing this at the moment. Had a few people in the comments sort of telling me off that this is far too many. I appreciate this is probably far too many. I own some in the portfolios that aren't on here, but then similarly, there's quite a few on here, sort of Pepsis and Cokes that I don't own. So I think I've got sort of 50 or 60 overall. It is a lot, but with it sort of being a larger portfolio, I kind of like the diversification. There's things that I could do, or could look into things like Target and Impact Healthcare and pick one of the two. There's just sort of very little reason to hold both of those. Similarly with Assura and Primary Healthcare, they're sort of very similar. Maybe pick between Taylor Wimpey and Barrett's and that sort of thing, and just sort of reduce across the board. But I kind of like having it. I don't feel I have to watch their sort of every move, as I say. Yeah, you sort of pick them at a decent value point. They're sort of mature companies generally. It's not as if you're buying a sort of, fledgling growth stock that you have to sort of watch like a hawk. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with sort of having a broad portfolio, and I really wouldn't be saying put all your money into one stock. The whole GME and AMC reminds me of the Facebook event that went viral. Yes, it's a little bit silly. I'm really surprised GameStop sort of held up as long as it has done and not not crashed. I mean, it seemed horrendous amounts of debt and just unprofitability, and they're keeping their high market cap, and AMC's just gone silly as well. You told you about the Amazon situation, thinking to put more into ADM. Yeah, that's fair enough. As I say, I was looking at Amazon myself, just that they've sort of stagnated for quite a while. Still sort of seeing a lot of growth there. It's obviously high. I think if we had a sort of a reasonable crash and they came down again, I'd be probably going for them. I think it's a decent business, but yeah, if you want to go a bit more defensive, then maybe someone like ADM is fine. Liam, you started your first job out of uni in auditing last year, putting away $1,200 a month. That's good. That's really good. It's more than, well, yeah, you can't do more than that, unfortunately. That's more than me. Certainly. I normally do about 1,000 a month, sometimes a bit less. Only at 18k, 15 months on, but I feel like it's not sufficient after watching my portfolio updates. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's, I do sort of remind people a lot of it's come from crypto. But yeah, without the crypto, sort of, I think £1,200 a month, if you're in sort of decent stocks, then you should do well. You just got to be a little bit more patient if you don't want to sort of be getting into more risky things like crypto or penny stocks or growth stocks and that sort of thing. But yeah, just got to kind of work away at your job and keep it in the background. It should do well. What's my timeline for my portfolio? Well, I put the 40,000 from my offset mortgage account in March 2019, and then sort of gone from there. That is what is now the Hargreaves Lansdown and iWeb portfolios, and then trading 212, I sort of put about 15 in the March 2020 COVID crash and sort of added to it from there, and then added all the crypto money that has come with it. Funny to see the volatility ration between your crypto versus your stock portfolios. Yeah, I know it's I had to put the the little skull picture on there when I had the sort of huge crash week. What was it? 113 grand down in a week. Obviously, you're not going to see that in stocks unless the whole world ends. But yeah, it was a bit of a rough week then. I like that the stocks are starting to sort of build up now and sort of provide a bit of balance, really, a bit of ballast as well for when the crypto's going down. With the crash, I'm now 40% crypto rather than sort of 50 or 60%. And with the stock rises, so doing pretty well. It's not how I plan to be reducing my crypto allocation. Hopefully, if crypto goes back up again, it's going to be getting up towards sort of 60% again. But Craig, out of my portfolio, what 3 stocks do I think have the biggest gains to make or best value? I mean, biggest gains and best value is probably 2 different things. The sort of best value, I guess, would be these sort of downside protection with potential growth, but probably the biggest growth would be the sort of more growth stocks. So things like Process and or sort of Process or Tencent, depending on which way you want to go for it. I mean, Tencent could sort of really do well over the next couple of years, and if you've got Process, they may sort of close the gap between their market cap and the 10-cent stake, so could sort of get a double whammy on that. I think Process could do really well. I mean, things like the Arc Medical pie. If you want to sort of go for something like that, you could maybe pick some out of like one of the Arc funds or the Arc Genomics fund, or you could go with a pie. We could get a crash, I still think, and that could come down. But if we don't, then probably could see some reasonable growth out of that. I think some of the probably some of the lower cap car companies, things like Stellantis, I think could do really well. I bought Renault as well. It's sort of got quite a lot of debt, but only 10 billion euros, I think it is. I think they could do well if they get more into electric vehicles and you start seeing decent numbers out of them. But yeah, it's difficult to sort of pick some of these, really. But I think probably the technology side could see the bigger gainers, to be honest. Things like maybe Baidu. I think they could have a lot of growth in them if they're getting into all sorts of AI and self-driving cars and that sort of thing. Sort of a bit like Tesla, but they're only sort of 60 billion market cap now. I think they could do well. But in terms of sort of best value, I don't think they would give you the downside protection in a crash. So I think the sort of value would be your defensive stuff like Lockheed Martin and things like Tyson Foods and that sort of thing. Maybe some of the miners, the sort of potential growth, but with downside protection as well, with them being good value. Talking about being told off, disappointed Polly isn't in the long-term stocks. Yes, I'm not really that keen on having individual gold and silver miners in the long-term portfolio. I kind of want to keep the gold and silver allocation to these four, to be honest, just in ETFs. If we sort of, obviously, if we have a bit of a crash and a gold and silver run, then I want to be sort of selling out of the individual gold and silver positions, and probably even Sylvania Platinum as well. I may keep a small amount back because it's sort of not really anything to do with these four funds. But for sort of, if we're coming out of a crash maybe in 2 or 3 years, gold hopefully having run up and me sort of sold out of a lot of it, then I don't really want to sort of hold individual miners as like little 0.5% or 1% positions. So rather just keep diversified and sort of keep these to 5% amongst them all. Although I think Polymetal's quite a big holding, I think, in either the standard ETF or the juniors, I can't remember. I think Polymetal is like 10% of one of those ETFs. So not getting rid of them totally. Thanks again for your time this evening. No worries, answering your questions. Have a great evening. Can't wait for the next stream. See you soon. Glad to be of help. Light-hearted questions. Have you ever been caught at work browsing stocks when you were meant to be working? I think so, but they don't often say anything. I might be checking my phone and somebody walks past and I sort of maybe catch a glance that they've seen me on my phone, but they never really sort of say anything. I think quite sort of casual at work. If we get the job done, then you can look at your phone every now and then, and yeah, we're not a clock in, clock out type company. So yeah, people sort of work through their lunch sometimes, so I know that gets, doesn't get forgotten if you sort of check your phone every now and then. Where did Norwich finish next season? Well, they're probably going back down, aren't they? I do keep an eye on them, but yes, not exactly very ambitious club. You have Westy always checking spot prices. Yes, you can get caught. Depends on how strict people are at work. You're always in the work van looking at charts. It's your good or bad addiction, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, you can't go too far. Yeah, I mean, it's not good for your health. People say to be checking it constantly. You've got to kind of sort of detach from it a little bit, unless you're, going to be looking to buy. It might be an idea to sort of keep an eye out on what you're looking to buy, but yeah, if not, it's probably not all that healthy to be checking it, multiple times a day. Although I sometimes do. Sadiq, do I DCA in the dip? I have been buying the, I don't know if you saw the video at the weekend, I've been sort of buying my sort of very, very small cap punts, the sort of Quan Stamp and Cocos and that sort of thing, little ones I bought on Binance. Yeah, and the sort of few that I bought on Coinbase Pro. I haven't been buying the sort of big, large caps because it wouldn't be sort of DCAing downwards. Most of them are still sort of far above what I paid for them. Obviously, if, I bought them at better prices, a year or two ago. So, yeah, even though they're dipped, I would still be averaging up. So, I kind of like buying the new coins, and sort of maybe I'll keep them a little longer than sort of my older coins. So, yeah, DCAing in the dip into the sort of new coins, the little punts as I call them. The two that I bought in Binance are like in the 600 to 700 rank on CoinMarketCap, so they really are sort of very, very speculative. But yeah, I think that sort of this crash time is probably the time to be buying them. They might not come to anything, but yeah, I've sort of put £500 now in most of them. So yeah, if one of them sort of pays off, then I would expect it to sort of probably pay for all 5 of them. Go. Yeah, no worries, Josh. We'll see you soon. Chat to you soon. So, I'll keep an eye out for a few more questions, I guess, and yeah, maybe leave it there. Have a quick check on the old crypto. Nothing too much happening. What's the news? Do every now and then just type Bitcoin and just sort of see what the stories of the day are. See if it's just nonsense. Half the time it is just Bitcoin has dropped or Bitcoin has gone up. Everyone likes to report the daily price movements these days. Crypto market suddenly crashes, wiping value from Ethereum and Dogecoin. Does seem weird that Dogecoin is still making the headlines. Nothing much there. Yeah, it's in a lot of South American countries sort of potentially taking on Bitcoin. El Salvador, Paraguay, Panama, Brazil, Mexico. Interesting. Potentially the sort of money printing from the US A lot of the South American countries sort of have dollar debts and sort of deal partially in dollars. So when the US print money and they don't get any of it, sort of been reading that they get a bit annoyed. So they're turning to Bitcoin maybe. Be interesting if some, especially people like Brazil, I've seen sort of these tiny little places like El Salvador, you know, I'm probably not going to have a huge effect, but yeah, if you start getting people like Brazil adopting it in any real way, very large population in Brazil, so that could be positive. Oh yeah, Ruffer exited their $1.1 billion bet. That was interesting. So you don't see this sort of thing, but I do think this is, you know, partly to blame for the drops. It's not just Elon Musk's Twitter account. Yeah, nothing too much. Craig, do I hold any dividend stocks for the long term? Or are you not tempted by any? Well, a lot of my sort of long-term allocation are sort of dividend stocks. They're not particularly, I don't really go for high yield necessarily. It's more just value. But when you go for value, they tend to be sort of dividend payers for the most part. I've got a few that don't pay a dividend. Things like sort of my Baidu and Tencent and that sort of thing. But yeah, most of these sort of pay a dividend. Can't think of many others that don't, to be honest. Yeah, things like the Arc Pies, sort of very speculative growth stocks. Boeing and Airbus and that sort of thing I'm not in. So they're not, well, Rolls-Royce at least aren't paying a dividend. Boeing, I think they've suspended theirs, but yeah, I'm not in those at the moment. But yeah, so quite keen on dividend stocks, but I'm not really in it solely for the dividend, more in it for total return, hoping for sort of long-term total return of hopefully about 4% after inflation. I've been saying 7%, but that's on the idea that inflation is about 3%. But yeah, really, I would sort of want 4% after inflation. So if inflation's going up, then I might need a bit more than 7%. But yeah, whether that comes from sort of growth, dividend, or a combination of the two, then I'm happy enough. So yeah, I'll give it a minute or two, and yeah, we'll call it a night, I guess. Probably should trim down some of these, but yeah, at some point maybe. Still some that are on the watch list. Simon, my next buys. It's a bit difficult at the moment. I think while crypto's sort of in the lull, I'm still sort of keen on buying crypto, really. I still think it's probably the best return I can get in the next sort of 6 months to a year. So yeah, next buys at the moment, certainly from salary, would just be crypto. If crypto starts to sort of rocket up and I'm selling and putting more into these, then yeah, what would it be? I still like Process at these prices. Still like Baidu. Could be buying the dip on Sony maybe. Quite happy with Broadcom and TSMC. What else we got? Probably put a little bit more into Vale and Glencore. Yeah, quite like those. I would probably, I mean, yeah, I can't add to the Arc Medical pie really because that's in the ISA. I would like to average down on that probably a little bit. Possibly Shell. We'll see. That'd probably be later on the list really. Possibly some more into Lennar. They've had a bit of a drop, but still look pretty good. Yeah, possibly maybe some of the newer ones. Could put a little bit more into Renault, maybe. Yeah, a few interesting possibilities. Any that I would still buy at current prices? Yeah, sort of, kind of what I'm looking at, really. Those I would be happy with. I mean, a lot of these aren't, you know, the ones that I've sort of not mentioning. I wouldn't say they're overpriced. If you know, if Bitcoin suddenly rockets up to my sort of 100k plus target and I'm selling out the vast majority of them, then I'd be quite happy to add, you know, sort of up most of these to my target allocation. I don't think any of them are hugely overpriced. So last sort of couple of weeks I sold out of Diageo because I thought that was sort of very, not very overpriced, but just, you know, seems to be pricing in almost all of the recovery. So I wasn't too happy on that. But yeah, I don't really see particularly any of the others as too overpriced. So if I had all the cash that I wanted from the crypto, I would probably buy the vast majority of these. But yeah, maybe BT is getting a little bit high now. I see it's sort of £1.85 now, possibly a little bit high. But yeah, while I'm still sort of 40 or 50% crypto, kind of happy with sort of letting most of these run, to be honest. Okay, guys, I think I'll leave it there. Hopefully see you guys on the video at the weekend, and catch up with you soon. Oh yes, BT and McDonald's look heavy. Yeah, as I say, I'm not actually in Pepsi, Coca-Cola, or McDonald's. They're on the watch list, but while they're at sort of 25 PE, it's a no from me. Cheers, look forward to the next video. Yeah, all good. Alright, I'll see you guys later.